and I'm live on YouTube. So we're beginning because the behind the YouTube is the Facebook video. So sometimes I'll look up at the Facebook camera, sometimes the YouTube camera, and I'll give just the first piece on YouTube, and then we'll go deeper into the meditation on Facebook, and then I'll clarify pratyahara, or the use of your senses, on the Facebook. And it was on time travel, and it was on meditation. And so this is really what we're covering. You know, in your mind, if you think about your past, if you think about a memory, and then you think about another memory, any other memory, and if you logically think about it, it's like, okay, I know that happened at a different time in my life. And such was when I was 6, and such was 19, and so on. But in your memory, it just kind of flips from one to the other immediately. They're like juxtaposed. It's as if there was no time between. It's moment to moment. Like if right now you're thinking what you're doing right now, maybe you're watching this video, you're listening to me, but at the same time, you're thinking of, okay, an hour from now I'm going to be doing such and such. As soon your mind is only in one experience at a time. And so you've just juxtaposed, oh, Jason, you've just juxtaposed this future moment with the present moment. So here's what we're going to do. We were talking about this in Tampa this weekend, about assumptions and expectations. That there's a lot of unspoken assumptions going in your life as you're operating, work and play and relationships. And you know that because conflicts are going to come up, and a lot of those conflicts are going to are caused by like a lack of communication about the underlying premise of what you entered into the relationship or the job, or like who's had a problem at a job where it was like the payment wasn't exactly how you expected it. Maybe there was some things taken out of your pay that you didn't know, or it was at an odd date, or it was in a manner that you weren't sure of. And these are just assumptions that maybe the employer assumed you knew, but you didn't know. And so then it resulted in like something you didn't like. You also know that you have assumptions because there's this other word. Like a lot of people will say, I'm coming as an open, like I'm open to whatever happens. They enter into an experience and they're like, yeah, I'm open. But if you were to ask the question in a different way, like, what do you expect it to be like? Oh, I don't have any expectations. Okay, well, do you expect that you're going to have a good time or bad time? Well, at some point, they're either going to just like not be saying anything, or they're going to admit that they have some kind of expectation about their day tomorrow. They're going to have an expectation about how they're going to wake up. Something they have an expectation about. They expect what time they're going to wake up. They expect what time they're going to go to bed. They expect who they're going to talk to tomorrow. If they have a boyfriend, girlfriend, they expect they're going to talk to their boyfriend, girlfriend tomorrow. And these are assumptions that become your reality, that you are experiencing a reality that's based on what you anticipate or what you expect is going to happen. And if you could go back to last night and you were able to tell yourself that, hey, Chris, tomorrow this, that, and the other thing is going to happen, and you were expecting or assuming that something else might be happening, but what if you could change that assumption? What if any problem that you came into today, that you encountered, any challenge, that you had a different assumption about your day, that you would have handled the problem differently? So like I assumed I was going to have a private client today, and then some tragedy happened, and the private client kind of fell through. It didn't happen. Now I could have been affected by that because that's happened before, and I'm assuming I'm going to get paid. And then when it doesn't happen, it's like, oh, I was expecting I was going to get paid. It created like a friction. And then, but this time in my mind, I'm thinking this win-win situation where if it doesn't happen, I'm going to make money doing these other activities that I have, because prospecting is where I make my money. And if it does happen, I won't have time for my emails, but I'll have a new client and get paid to do that. And in any case, I am going to show up and have a really magical experience, because each moment is this magic of me just moving through space, experiencing time. And if I could have any assumption or expectation about my day tomorrow, what might it be? Like, for example, what if I was to assume that every person I call on the phone tomorrow is waiting for me? What if I was to assume that every person I approach on the street or in the mall or at the anywhere is excited to talk to me? I assume they're excited to talk to me. What if I assume anybody that comes to my class tomorrow is going to want to take a private session with me afterwards? For sure. I assume that. But I also assume that there's going to be like roadblocks or hurdles along the way. And I'm already expecting that. And so this is called like a knowledge of cause and effect. That as I go through the experiences of life and I learn that there's going to be this challenge and this challenge. And so I can start to assume that that's going to be there. Now, go to the future. Go to some achievement that you want in the next 6 to 12 months. Something like tangible, you know? Big, make it big, dream big, but something realistic. Like if you go from zero, broke to a billionaire in a year, you know, but something, okay. So think about that. 6 to 12 months, something that you want to achieve or have achieved or this, and that person, what assumptions do they wake up with? Okay, so in 12 months, let's move it farther. Let's say 10 years. 10 years you've achieved some level of success. If it could just be, forget the time, just whatever time that you want, there's an outcome that you're seeking, that you're wanting. And what if you had it already? You had that relationship, or you had that money, or you had that social circle, or whatever it is that you're going for. What if it was to come to pass? And it was the norm. It was the lifestyle. It wasn't 999 days of not, and then on day 1,000 it was there. It built up, it was there, and then you're there, and then all of your assumptions as that person waking up with $100 million. And you assume that you fill it in. You know, I can assume a bunch of stuff. I could start putting it there. You know, if I had $100 million and it was the norm for me, like I had built that up, I would wake up assuming my time's going to be highly in demand, that people are going to be supplicating to me left and right, wanting handouts. I assume that my car's going to be waiting for me when I go downstairs. I'm assuming that I'm somewhere where there is a downstairs. You know, there's all these, like, I could start assuming things, but then when I start looking at like social, like I assume that my life is going to be disciplined. I assume that if I want to keep my money, that there's a consistency, that there's a routine, that there's a process that I engage in and day out. And so now think about now, and if you applied those assumptions, that I assume that people want what I have, that I assume that my day must be disciplined, routined, and consistent, just like that person. And so what I've done now is I've created my assumption bubble around present, and I've created my assumption bubble around this success or this achievement that I'm wanting. Money is a really tangible thing because it kind of hits your nervous system. It really means something more than just the paper. And so, like I say, $100 million. If you can really think about $10 million, $10 million, like, but then if you think about, okay, if I had $100 million, and there's a different feeling with 10 million and 100 million, but I'm just saying words, and they're just representing numbers, which we really only think of as paper because, you know, I doubt very many of us have had so much money that we couldn't think of it in terms of paper. Like once you get to like whatever it is, $150,000, then it's like kind of impractical to have it in a suitcase. It's just too much cash. But like I've held $20,000 of cash in my hands, and I'm sure a lot of people have held some significant amount. But a million, 10 million, 100 million, it's like beyond what most of us have conceived of. And yet still the idea of 10 million, you feel it in your nervous system different than if I had $100 million. And so money's like a real thing to our physiology. And so that's kind of why I start there. But your success thing could be anything. And there's some assumptions about that person, you in that situation. Let's call that a terminal. And then there's assumptions about your person you're being right now at this terminal. And if I take the assumptions of that terminal and I make them the assumptions of this terminal, then I create what you might call a circuit. I create this connection from this moment and that moment via the assumptions, via the frames, you might call them in NLP, the perspectives that I'm adopting to go about and go through my day. And then I allow energy to flow. Energy is supposing a frequency. You cannot have energy without frequency. So I am changing my frequency. Now, the more that I invest my attention into the assumptions of the success terminal, the more that I start to pick up the frequencies that harmonize with it. And therefore I attract, I resonate, I harmonize with those frequencies that are in alignment with my success assumptions. Now, the conflict happens, though, because I have a whole momentum of assumptions of days behind me, of operating in past frames, until I became aware that my assumptions entering into this day, in this life, in this moment, are actually creating my reality. That what I assume is creating my reality. If I assume my girlfriend's going to be home when I get home, then if she's not home, there's like a disappointment. But it was just my assumption that that was going to happen. If I assume that, whatever, I assume that my car's going to work, and then I go down there, and if it doesn't work, or whatever, if I assume I'm going to wake up and there's not going to be that many emails, and I see that like 5 people sent purchase a product, and I get like the email of that, I'm like, hell yeah. The assumptions of my success terminal, then I'm creating the reality of the success. And this is a shift from the reality that I had been creating up until this point. So there needs to be a persistence and a consistency in the practice of visualizing and clarifying the assumptions of my success terminal. Until when? It overcomes the momentum of the assumptions that had come up till now. Then in my mind, so talking about time travel before I end this video, I thought about my assumptions now. I had the experience of what am I doing now, but what assumptions would I want to have if I could have any assumptions? If I could have any assumption about my cold calling, about my day tomorrow, if I could have any assumptions about my yoga practice and what that experience is going to be like, this experience, if I could create any assumption I wanted about my interactions with my family, or with friends, or with women out, or with past clients, whatever, what would they be? And then I send my mind to the future. What is the outcome I'm seeking? And I put myself in that outcome, and I really clarify the experience. I have some feelings. I engage in what interactions might be happening in that moment, what assumptions are going to be surrounding that individual having those experiences. And then I return to present with those assumptions. And there was a moment and a moment, and there was nothing in between. And I just connected 2 moments in time in my mind via this circuit because that's how we're measuring time. Time is just like a moment, and then it shifts to another moment, and that's how we know time passed. And so I just stamped together, I juxtaposed this moment and that moment with the assumptions. I grouped them by their assumptions, and that allows the energy to flow there. There was a key point in that I kind of missed. Assumption, time, portal, circuit, the experiences of it. And so this is a description of law of attraction, of that the time is a movement. That time is measured by movement. If you look at like the seconds, is the distance light travels. It's kind of reflexive definition. Like how long does it take light to travel 186,000 miles? That's a second. And what is a second? A second is how far. And then what is wait. It's a reflexive definition. So light, light is the time is the duration it takes light to travel 180 or 300,000 kilometers, and a meter is how far light travels in 1/300,000th of a second. So it defines time and space. Space meaning dimensions. Time and space are defining each other, and how we know that time is passing is really through the movement. And so what needs to happen between I'm visualizing now and visualizing then is things need to move around. Time passes between now and when my success is manifested. And what that means, another way of saying time passes, is things just need to move around. That there's a reorienting of all the objects in my life so that it becomes that. And that is facilitated by stamping together these two moments in my mind. And my assumption is that when you visualize your chosen outcome, your desired outcome, that it probably creates a feeling in you. If you focus on it for long enough, which is what we're about to do after I end this YouTube, is we're going to go through the meditation of it, is it will generate a feeling in you, and then you drop the visualization and carry the feeling onward. Because that feeling is energy, it's emotion. And energy has a frequency. And the frequency that you've changed, you were on some emotional frequency, now you're on this emotional frequency because of the montage of images that you were seeing in your visualization, will harmonize with different frequencies in the environment, cause movement and manifestation. Okay? So basically in the meditation that we're about to do, similar to what I gave in the apprentices, is we need to tap into unbounded mind. We need to dissolve filter between singular mind and this ultimate mind. When we tap into ultimate mind, we'll apply what we just visualized. And then we'll learn about it and the steps that we need to take to get there. So, hope you found this useful. On YouTube, go to ninthlim.com to maybe check out how you might want to sign up. Okay, catch you next time.